I really wish I hadn't been right about this. Hello, my friends. My name is AJ. Welcome back to my book nook. A few months ago, I made a video about Netflix and its impact on the way that we consume media. One of the things that I expressed in this video was a fear for the longevity of these shows and movies that are original to these streaming services. When we do not have things like box sets or reruns anymore, what happens when those streaming services die off? What happens if something happens to the server and we lose that content forever? And at the time, I thought that maybe this was a foolish fear. Surely there are copies elsewhere, surely there are physical copies, and you can still get box sets of things like Stranger Things. They're just a lot harder to find. And these original series are never going to be taken off while these streaming services exist, right? Well, it turns out that those fears are valid, and I am feeling very vindicated right now, so let's talk about it. So for the past few months, a lot of streaming services have been removing their original content from their services. Now, the first time I actually saw anything about this was with Paramount Plus and their series Rise of the Pink Ladies. And at the time, I will be honest, I found it a little bit funny because I had not heard anyone talking about this show. I wasn't convinced anyone had seen it. I remember seeing ads for it when it hadn't come out yet, but since it had been airing, I had not heard anyone talk about it. I hadn't seen any promo material. It was just odd to me, and it was a little bit funny, the idea of so few people knew that this existed that now it's just gone. But then Disney Plus removed a bunch of their content, including a show called Willow, which is a basically sequel to an 80s fantasy film by the same name that I really wanted to watch. And now that it affected me, I wasn't finding it so funny anymore. Disney started removed a bunch of their content back in May, and since then they have actually removed more content as well. This includes lots of shows that I really enjoyed and I thought a lot of people liked, like The World According to Jeff Goldblum, which is a wonderful show, but it also included shows that I hadn't had a chance to watch yet. Willow has not even been out for much longer than a year, if even a year. And I simply haven't had the chance to watch it because we're so inundated with so many options for shows constantly coming out and movies constantly coming out and non-stop options that I just didn't really get around to watching it at this point. What was most shocking to me was perhaps a movie called Craters. And this was a movie that I had not heard anything about. I'd never heard of it. I didn't even know it existed. But this movie was added to Disney Plus and then removed only 48 days later. This movie had not even 2 months, and it had no promotional material whatsoever, none that I saw anyways, although to be fair, I wasn't really the target demographic. And it's bizarre to me that this is something that these services that encourage people to be able to rewatch old things whenever they want, these services that were built on the idea of people being able to watch whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, just don't have their own content that's original to them anymore. So why is this happening? Well, there's a very easy answer for this. The answer is money. Because, we all know that Disney is struggling with that. Removing content means that residuals don't have to be paid. So if you don't know what a residual is basically a payment that an actor or a writer or a director gets when a show of theirs is played again. And I don't know a lot about it in regards to streaming. I know a little bit more about it when we talk in regards to cable and network television, where anytime a show is rerun, they'll give you a little bit of money as payment for your work, still profiting for them. I'm not exactly sure how it works with streaming. I think that is one of the things that I know that it's definitely not high enough. That is one of the things that the Writers Guild is fighting for on their strike right now. But basically, the idea of removing shows off of Disney Plus means that Disney no longer has to pay residuals, which is honestly kind of poor taste considering what's going on right now with the strikes. But also, it allows them to claim these projects as failures on their tax returns. Disney claimed a $1.5 billion tax write-off after dropping a bunch of their content. Another option is for streaming services to sell these shows and movies to other services. For example, the collection of Marvel TV shows that were on Netflix and were Netflix originals are no longer on Netflix, now they're on Disney+. As I mentioned in my previous video, Netflix decides if shows are going to be renewed after only 28 days. And if enough people don't watch it, then it just doesn't get renewed, it gets canceled. And that used to be all it meant. It meant that great shows didn't get a second season. But now it seems that if it doesn't get enough viewers, it's just going to be deleted from existence.
Hey, it's Editing AJ here. Just wanted to bring up something that I forgot to mention in the video, but this is actually really reminiscent of what we see in pre-1950s and sort of 1920s peak of film first being invented, where a lot of that content and a lot of those films have actually been lost to time and are just lost movies. And that seems to be what's going to happen now if they are just deleting movies after only a couple months. So yeah, a little bit worrying that we've sort of regressed that much.
I truly believe that we live in an oversaturation of media. There's pretty much always a new Marvel or Star Wars show coming out on Disney+. Netflix has so many shows constantly coming out and being added to it, and so many movies are being added to all these different streaming services. That doesn't even account for things like YouTube and Twitch, which have so much content being uploaded and streamed all at once. It is impossible for you to watch everything. And I know that I'm contributing to that problem by making these videos and putting them on YouTube, but this isn't about me, okay? I'll use the example of Willow again. I didn't have a chance to watch Willow simply because there was so much other content that I was busy watching. And not just on Disney+, on things like Netflix or YouTube channels that I watch or Twitch streams that I watch or, doing my own thing and reading a book. There's not enough time in the world to be able to watch everything you want to watch. And the idea that now you are basically forced to binge watch things is stressful and off-putting to me. I have long since talked about the impact of streaming and binge watch culture and how harmful I think it is to the consumption of media. The idea that we are expected to watch everything within a week of it being out, and then official Instagram pages posting spoilers about that show, even though you haven't even gotten halfway through it, is ridiculous. Now, not only are we encouraged to do that, we're basically being forced to do that. Now, I didn't think that Disney Plus was better about this because they were at least releasing episodes of their shows on a weekly basis. So it was almost a little bit like cable or network TV. But unlike cable and network TV, you could go back and watch your favorite episodes again and again and again without having to wait for a rerun to come on. And that's good. That is a good side of streaming services. But the downside is that they could just remove them whenever they want. And that removes your ability to go and watch them whenever you want. Now, a great option is something like box sets. I, again, have talked so much about box sets because I think they're such a wonderful thing. To be able to own a physical copy of your favorite shows is a great idea. It means you can then watch it whenever you want and you don't have to worry about who has the licensing for it or where it's available. The other thing that strikes me as really odd and really sad about this new way of handling media is we are never going to have cult classics again. So for those of you who don't know what a cult classic is basically a show or a movie or any piece of media that is not popular when it comes out, but gains a small yet dedicated following later on in its lifespan. And sometimes this following can get bigger and bigger. For example, the movie The Princess Bride, my all-time favorite movie, was a complete flop in the box office. But then when it was released for people to own copies and watch at home, suddenly it got this huge burst in popularity. And now it's incredibly iconic. Most people have heard of it if they haven't seen it. That would not have happened if it had been deleted from existence not even 2 months after it had been put out. Let me give you an example of some TV shows. Shows like The Office and Parks and Rec, probably a couple of the most famous comedies of the 2000s were not successful in their first seasons. They were okay, but they didn't get great reviews, and now pretty much everyone has heard of them. There are so many examples of incredible films and TV shows that failed in box office or on their first season and then got a chance to pick up and learn more. And I think that's especially true for television, because with television in your first season, your writers are still getting familiar with the characters and the world in which they're existing. But as the seasons go on, they're going to become more familiar with the characters. They're going to be more confident in the worlds that they can explore with them. And that is really exciting. And the fact that so many shows are never going to have that chance is so sad to me. Because the shows that are the biggest right now are not new and original shows. They're franchise shows, Marvel shows, Star Wars shows. If everything is expected to be an instant hit, then we're never going to see those passion projects, those really weird shows and movies that somehow do really well. People need to have time to find the content that they want to enjoy. We all have lives. We don't just sit around waiting for the next show to drop on Disney Plus or the next movie to drop on Netflix. We have things we need to do. It is just really disappointing to me that the cult classic is not going to exist in this kind of media output. I've always been a big fan of TV, and I'd love to be a showrunner one day, and honestly, that statement is more so reliant on the way that TV was made back when network and cable TV were the biggest things. I will be real with you. In recent days, the TV industry has seemed very grim. However, because of my love of television, I can see how so many shows don't really come into their groove until their second season or even longer than that. And they're still good, but they're not instant hits. The assumption that everyone who's gonna wanna watch and enjoy something are gonna watch it within the first month is ridiculous. It's really, really sad to me that this is the way that streaming services have taken the way we consume content. Streaming services aren't all bad. There are a lot of really great things about them. They're super convenient, at least for the rewatchability aspects of them. But these services were sold as a place where we could watch whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. And now, it's not quite the case anymore. Now, we can watch whatever we want within the guidelines of what the streaming service is willing to keep on based on if it's popular enough. And frankly, I am feeling very disappointed and very hopeless about that. So at this point, I think the best thing that we can do is prioritize those shows that not a lot of people have heard of. Because I promise you, those big shows are never going to disappear. But if there is a smaller show that you really enjoy and you really want to watch the whole thing, or you saw, hey, this show seems interesting, I should watch that when it comes out, prioritize that on your list and go back to the other show that you're in the middle of watching. Because honestly, at this point, who knows how long it's going to be there. But that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video, or at least found it a little bit informative. I know I got a little bit grim there for a second. But this is something that I am very passionate about and find very interesting. If you did enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to stick around and be notified when my next video comes, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And let me know in the comments, has there been any shows removed from Disney Plus or any other streaming services that you really enjoyed or that you didn't even get the chance to watch? What are your thoughts on this entire process? And just for fun, what is your favorite cult classic movie or TV show? Anyway, that is it for me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see all of you lovely people in the next video. Bye!